Hi, I'm Maddie Herring. I'm the daughter of Teresa, who is the daughter of Kathy Snider. And we've been wanting to do an interview with Kathy for a while because we want to know more about her life and everything that she's had. And we're very grateful to have this experience and learn more about everything that she's been through in her 87 years. So with that, I'll introduce Kathy Snider.
Hi. Thank you, Maddie. I'm Kathy, and I was born Kathleen Wenzel Snider in December the 6th, 1931, in Clovis, New Mexico. Well, actually, it was 26 miles northwest of Clovis on a little farm. And fortunately, there was a doctor that was willing to come all that way. And then when I was about 6, we moved into the big city of Clovis, New Mexico. And Clovis was a railroad town. The Santa Fe Railroad had their big repair shop there. And eventually my dad got a job there. And I lived in a house with my 3 older brothers. It was Dick and Pat and Joe. And my sister, she was just a year and a half older, Mary Lou, and my younger sister, Becky. And that was the family that moved into town in 1936, I think it was. And my 2 younger brothers, Jim and Tom, were born in 1938 and 1940.
Just talk to Maddie.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Just talk
I was
to Maddie.
confused.
No worries.
Yeah.
So, where you're living in Bremerton today, so what year did you move to Bremerton?
In 1942.
Okay. And now that you live here in your retirement, in your old age, how many kids do you have?
I have 7 children.
And how many grandkids do you know?
I have 25 grandchildren.
What about great-grandkids? Here's the
I
test.
believe I have 33 great-grandchildren and 3 more that are due this next few months.
Wow, how exciting.
Yeah, very.
We have the best family ever. Thank you, Grandma. Okay, so we want to get some background on your parents. You said your dad worked on the railroad, right?
Yeah.
And what about your mom?
My mom they both grew up in Kansas, my mom and dad. They were both born there and grew up there. And my mom was a school teacher when she was young, before she was married. She taught school for 8 years, and my dad was a farmer. And at that time, farming was not very successful due to the depression and the, what did they call it?
Was it the Dust Bowl?
Dust Bowl, yes. That just wiped out that area. And so he was fortunate to get a job on the railroad, and he worked for the railroad for 5 years before we moved to Bremerton in 42.
So do you remember any of the dust storms or anything like that at the time?
I remember what we had to do. We had, well, our plates and everything got covered with dust when there was, a dust storm come up. And we had these special things that we'd try to block out. They were like little bars of sand that we put against the wall, the door stops. And I remember that, but I was pretty young, because that happened. The Dust Bowl was like in the 30s, mid-30s. And by the time I was 10 years old, I think, in 41, that wasn't so severe.
Right.
But
so what prompted the move up north to Bremerton?
well, the World War II.
Oh, okay.
My dad taught himself how to weld because they needed welders in the shipyards. And he was looking to get a job in Long Beach, California, but he got to Long Beach shipyard and they said they needed more welders in Bremerton. And so he just came all the way up to Bremerton and stayed here for a month until he got settled. And we followed him, which was quite a chore. My mom driving all 8 of us kids in a panel wagon. Took 8 days for us to drive from Clovis to Bremerton.
And what kind of car?
It was a van. It was an old flour truck. I mean, a florist van.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they remodeled and cut windows in it for us to look out. And,
That was the family car, huh?
yeah.
Wow.
Well, that was just for this trip.
Just for the trip?
Yeah.
Okay. So then once you moved here, did you guys have a house?
Well, actually, there wasn't a house. We had a hard time finding any place to live. In fact, it was pretty pitiful. The first place we got was through the charity of one of the parishioners here that had a house that he had already rented out to individuals. But he let us have 1 bedroom, I think maybe 2 bedrooms and a kitchen for all 8 of us. And my brother slept in the van. And that went on for, I'd say, maybe 2 months, 3 months. And that was on 5th and Pacific, right here in downtown Bremerton. And I could walk to the Catholic school and to church from there. And then they were building World War II houses like crazy around here. And one of the projects, they called them the projects, and they finally got one, and we got a 3-bedroom, and we lived in that for another 6 months, and then I think my folks bought a place out by Belfair, on the old Belfair Highway. And my dad added a couple of rooms to that. It was just a 3-room house.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad added a couple of rooms to that in the summertime. And we lived there for probably another 2 years. And then we moved back into Bremerton, and then the war was over.
Okay.
And we got a house right on 6th and Broadway in Bremerton. We lived there till I was a year out of high school when I was still living there.
Okay.
So I just walked to Bremerton High School.
So I think I remember you telling me that you remember the day that Pearl Harbor was bombed. Is that right? Or you remember?
I remember the day because I'd never heard of this before. Newspaper boys walking up and down the street hollering extra. This was in Clovis.
Oh, okay.
In 41.
Right.
And we didn't know but we could tell all the adults. I mean, when you're 10 years old, you don't know what's going on.
Right.
I didn't know.
Right.
Have any idea. And they were all listening to the radio, and they were all talking, and they were all, you knew it was something big.
Yeah.
And then my brothers, right away, they got jobs. There was an airport there, and they started hiring, had military people coming already,
Right.
That's 6 months from December 41 till we left in the summer of 42. The military came into Clovis like you wouldn't believe. They had an airport there
Right.
beforehand, and I had one of my older brothers. Can you imagine a 15, 16-year-old kid packing parachutes?
Oh my goodness.
That was his job.
It's a lot of trust.
People did a lot of things, unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then my 13-year-old brother was fixing hamburgers.
Oh,
in
wow.
a hamburger
Okay.
stand. Yeah, and that was the way it was during the war the whole time. People did everything.
Everybody had to pitch in.
Everybody did anything and everything to help, and you were constantly aware that was primary
Right.
in your mind.
So-
Was the war effort.
Did you ever do anything for the war effort?
Babysat.
You babysat?
I was a champion babysitter, and so was my sisters. There's still people around here that we babysat for.
That's so funny.
My sister babysat, well, I did too, for Deacon Bill at church.
Wow.
He doesn't remember me, but he was just a baby. But
Yeah.
he remembered my younger sister babysitting for him. And that's what we did. We did what we could. And my sister, she was just a year and a half older than I was. And she managed to cook for the priests because the priests couldn't find people to do it. She would fix breakfast for the priests.
Okay.
We'd drive in from Belfair, and we'd have to come in early because my dad had to get to work.
Uh-huh.
And so we'd come in early with him,
Uh-huh.
and my sister would go over and cook breakfast for the But she was the most capable person you ever saw in your life.
And this is at Star of the Sea in Berlin.
Yeah, Star to Sea, and then we all went to Star to Sea. We go to Mass every day because we
You're
got
there.
in there so early.
Yeah.
And they had a lot of priests in that house because, well, they had a lot of priests at that time, like 3 or
Right.
4, and then they'd have chaplains off the ships and
Okay.
things like that. So there were a
Right.
lot of people to cook for.
Yeah.
And everybody else had a job. I mean,
Yeah.
if you were capable. All the women went to work.
Uh-huh.
They were women working welders and
Really?
oh yeah,
Oh, wow.
oh yeah, they did all that sort of thing. If you were capable and could be trained, you did all that work. And they made more money that way too.
So what about Grandma Wenzel? Did she ever?
She went to work.
Oh, okay.
She went to work. She worked in the cafeterias in the shipyard.
And then what about your brothers? Did they join the war effort?
They were, they were not, they were still in high school. My oldest brother, my 3 oldest brothers, they were in high school, all 3 of them. And they only went half days to school. The
Okay.
rest of the day they would work.
Okay.
They'd have jobs. Most of the jobs were in the shipyard.
Yeah.
They'd have all kinds of jobs for kids.
Right.
And the one brother, he was especially smart. He had an apprenticeship
Mm-hmm.
when he was only 15 or 16. He worked 8 hours in the shipyard on the apprenticeship and then went to go to 4 hours of school in the morning.
Wow.
And yeah, when he got out of high school, he had his credentials to be the ship fitter.
So let's move on from your family and talk a little bit about Grandpa Snider. So he was growing up on a farm out in Kansas, right?
Right, yeah.
So where was he from?
He was born in, I think he was born in Logan, Kansas, which is western Kansas, and northwestern Kansas, and it's a very sparsely populated area, a lot of small little towns. And most everybody were wheat farmers around there, and the population of Logan, I think when he was born, was around 1,000, 900 to 1,000.
Okay.
And of course, everybody knows everybody. And his mother was working, and he stayed from the time he was probably a year old. He stayed with a family in Logan that took care of him, and his mother would come home on the weekends
Okay.
until he was probably, well, till she married his stepdad.
Because she was a single mom, right?
Yeah, she was a single mom. Her husband, Lee's dad, had some problems. And he was incarcerated for a couple of years.
Right.
And then he never came back to Logan again.
Right.
After he got out and everything. And I don't think he was financially supporting.
Right.
But anyway, when his mom got married, then he moved to the farm,
Okay.
and this family that had been helping him. And the town is so good; they're very supportive of anybody in a situation like that.
Right.
So he was very lucky to have everybody knew.
A good
And
community.
his nickname was, did you know his nickname was Cork?
I heard that,
Corky.
yes.
He looked like a comic character in the comics.
Named
And
Corky.
everybody called him Corky, and they still, to this day, a lot of people call him Cork, you know,
That's
when they're
too
talking
funny.
about him, Cork.
Wow. So I know Grandpa had quite a walk to school, isn't that right?
Well, yeah, when he was living on the farm, it was 3 miles to the school. It was one of those one-room schoolhouses
Yeah.
that, like, where my mom taught, you know, and it was 3 miles to the school. And I think they had about 6 or 7 students that came.
Wow.
And when he graduated from the 8th grade, they closed the school because there was nobody left to go to school there.
Wow.
And he didn't have to walk the 3 miles. His stepdad, Floyd, gave him a horse to ride,
Okay.
a little pony.
So
So he had a horse he could ride to school. And then, but he wanted a bicycle, so later on, but he thought it would be better than, I can't imagine. But he wanted the bicycle rather than riding the horse.
That's too funny. So,
But
how-
what was the joy about living out there he was a great reader.
Oh, okay.
He read all the time because they didn't have, and of course they didn't have TV.
Right. No,
They had
they're,
very little radio,
yeah.
and whatever was on radio wasn't that good. And
Yeah.
so what do? You read. And he was a reader. He was very well read.
So how did he get out of Logan?
Well, what happened when he, after the 8th grade, he moved to Logan,
Okay.
back to Logan to finish high school.
Right.
He stayed with the same family that
Wow.
he was with before until he graduated from high school.
Uh-huh.
And he worked in a restaurant there after school, which helped pay for his tuition. And then he was a very good athlete, you know.
Football, right?
Football, but mostly basketball. He was a
Okay.
better basketball player. You know, then when he got a job when he graduated from high school for a company that was building roads. And then come fall and winter, they weren't building roads anymore. And he
Right.
didn't have a job. So 2 of his buddies decided they'd go enlist in the service. So this was 1949, graduated from high school in 49, so that some winter, 49, he went to Denver and they enlisted in the Marine Corps because that was the only office open. Others were closed. And then he came home and he had to wait till February to go.
Okay.
And then he went off, and that was in 1950. He went to is it called Mare Island in San Diego?
Uh-huh.
Well, no, it isn't Mare Island, it's something else. But anyway, he went in San Diego is where he did his boot training. He came home in June, and he went back, you know, and then that's when the Korean War started.
Okay.
And he was Korean War thing started in July, sometime in July.
Okay.
And on August the 6th, he was on a ship going to Korea.
Wow.
And he was there, I think he was in what they call the Incheon landing. That was the big push that they did to drive the North Koreans out of South Korea. And they had a landing there, and he was in the second wave that went on, and he was wounded there. And they took him off the beach onto a hospital ship, and they performed whatever operation they did. They still don't have any records of it, but
Really?
Evidently he had shrapnel in his stomach.
Okay.
He had shrapnel scars all over his back and his stomach and whatnot. And he was, then he slowly moved back to the States. I think he went from the hospital ship to Japan, and then from Japan to Hawaii, and then from Hawaii to California. And what's the hospital there? That's Mare Island, where he went to. He had a hospital ship, the hospital there for him, the Naval Hospital.
Was it North Island in California?
What?
Was it North Island in San Diego?
Where he did boot camp?
Yeah, in San Diego, would it be North Island?
I don't know what I would know it if I heard it.
Or Camp Pendleton, maybe?
Camp Pendleton.
Camp Pendleton.
That's it. Like I know it, but I can't remember those things. I'm not very good at remembering names of anything. But his parents were really great. They were so broken-hearted. They came out to see him when he was in the hospital.
California? Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then he was, after he recovered, he only weighed about 120 pounds.
How
when he
tall
got out
was
of the
Barry
hospital.
Pond?
He was 6 foot tall.
Wow.
And when he got out of the hospital, he only weighed about 120 pounds, something like that. Then he went home for a month, back to Kansas, and that town is so good to him. Those little towns, they just...
Yeah, take care of their own.
And he was such a good student in school. He was valedictorian of his high school class.
Oh, wow.
And, they just admired how much he had done with his,
Right.
And so he was very highly thought of there in Logan. And then they sent him, I think he had applied for Fort Riley. He wanted to go to Fort Riley, Kansas. That's where he wanted to go, which was closer to home.
Uh-huh.
They sent him to Bremerton, Washington. He still had 3 more years of his enlistment.
Oh, okay.
He'd only spent 1 year.
Oh, poor guy.
And so he spent 3 years in Bremerton to finish his enlistment. And that's where he met me,
Okay.
in Bremerton. He was, well, I guess everybody knows that that's what guys do. They go to the bar
Uh-huh.
and they meet other people, and he met some very good friends of mine that I had known all my life, you know, growing up at the school, and they seemed to like Lee a lot, so they invited him to one of our parties, and that's how I met him the first time, was when my friends, they were all guys.
Yeah.
Girls didn't go to bars back then.
Right. Yeah.
That you just didn't do that. Even if you were of age, you didn't go to bars.
Uh-huh.
But they'd come home and tell us stories about the new acquaintances and stuff. And I think my friends really respected him because he had done his service in the,
Yeah.
you know, and served his country, and
Right.
they admired him for that.
Okay.
We're gonna stop. Take a break. All right. So, when you and Grandpa met at the bar, did you? Or well, you didn't meet at the bar, but you were introduced at a party.
Yeah.
So then, did you start dating right away? How did it go?
Yeah, I think we started dating right away.
Okay.
And then, yeah, we dated real steady after that, you know, right away. And of course, I think both of us had dates before, and you know,
Yeah.
and nothing worked out for either one of us, you know,
Right.
and the people we dated before. And I think we just kind of found each other, and so we became engaged right away, and
How long did you date before you got engaged?
probably 2 months.
Wow. And then when did you get married?
Got married 2 months later. Well, we were going to wait till, we got married in September, we were going to wait till March. But I had a mother who had a very strong will, and she thought it would be better if we got married in September because my sister would be there to be the maid of honor.
Okay.
And my sister, turned out she got pregnant, and so she couldn't be there anyway.
Oh no.
So she didn't get to be my maid of honor, but we had to set up everything already
Right.
for the wedding. And
Which sister is this?
His folks came out for the wedding. This was great.
Which sister was that?
Mary Lou.
Oh, okay.
So
So.
she had gotten married in May,
Oh, okay.
and so she was going to come out and be in my wedding.
So what day, what year did you get married? September?
September the 27th in 1952.
Okay. And so.
Is that right? Yeah, that would be right. 1952.
So.
I should have this written.
Grandpa was still in the Marines at this point?
Oh yes, he still had 3 more years to serve
Was
in the Marines.
Did he marry you in his uniform?
No, he wanted to,
Oh, okay.
but nobody else would have been in uniform.
Oh, so he wore a
Because
suit.
all of his ushers and everything were this gang of friends of ours, mutual friends of ours.
Uh-huh. So everybody wore suits?
Yeah.
So was the Korean War still going on at this time?
Yes, it was. The Korean War wasn't over till 53. But my brothers, my older brother had joined the service in 1943, and he was still in the Navy. He had been a career Navy man.
Okay.
He decided he liked it, and so he stayed in.
Which brother is this?
Dick, my
Okay.
oldest brother. And then the next brother, he joined the service in, I think it was must have been 1947, 46 or 47. And
Who is this?
this is Pat.
And how?
His name was Charles Patrick.
Okay.
And he went to officers candidate school, so he enlisted.
Oh, wow.
But he went to officers candidate school, and then he elected to go into the Air Force.
Okay.
Well, actually, it wasn't, at that time, there was no Air Force.
It didn't exist, right?
It was Army Air Force.
Yes.
So he went into the Air Force, and he took his training in Texas. And then you have a choice of what you want to do, and he wanted to be a jet pilot.
Okay.
And they had just come into being the jet pilots, the jet, and he took that training in Flagstaff, Arizona.
Okay.
And my mom and dad went down for that, pin his wings on, or what they call it.
Graduation type
Yeah.
ceremony. Wow.
And I should have remembered this before where I was, because I would think I was the babysitter for Jim and Tom when they were gone
Okay.
on this little trip.
So did he go to Korea then?
My brother, it was about 2 years later that
Okay.
he went to, he actually got stationed in Japan.
Okay.
And he was there for, I don't know, 6 months or so. And as soon as the war broke out in Korea, he was right there,
Right.
being in Japan, so he went right away over. And I found out later that he wasn't flying a jet. I mean, it took me a long time, years, to find out he really wasn't flying a jet when he crashed. He crashed on the 22nd of August. That's when they said he was missing. My folks got a message he was missing in action.
Okay.
And I don't know how long it was they discovered that that they had, I guess it was when they had the invasion and drove North Korea out, they found the bodies and whatnot.
Okay.
And his co-pilot was a kid from Seattle.
Oh, really?
But I found all this out later on.
Huh.
And, just researching. And one of the things I found out that he really wasn't flying a jet. He's flying an observation plane.
Oh.
Like they just fly over to find out where things are.
Where things are, yeah.
And so that's...
He wasn't like fighting and shooting or anything like that, yeah.
No, just observing, and he got shot down, is what happened,
Huh.
by the ground forces.
Okay. So shot down in South Korea or
And it was actually, it was in South Korea, and then they found the bodies after
after they drove him
they
out?
found the wreckage and whatnot, so.
Huh.
But it was a long time. It was very hard on my parents.
I'm sure.
Very hard time.
So August 22nd of what year was that?
That was 1950,
Okay.
right after the war broke out. And then my the next brother, Joe Wenzel, he enlisted right when he was 18, so it must have been 46 or 47, Navy.
Okay.
And he was in the Navy, and when the war was over, I think he only had to serve 2 years. But then what happened, the Korean War broke out, and he got called back in because you're already in the reserves, they don't let you go. So he was gone when my brother was killed.
Okay.
And my sister Mary Lou had just joined the Waves, Navy,
Huh.
that same time. So she was gone when my brother, she'd just gone to basic training.
What was that?
The Waves.
What is
You know
that?
the Waves?
I've never heard of that.
The women's Navy.
Okay.
You know how WACs are for the Army? You don't know?
I've never heard of this before.
Well, they had women they were segregated back then. Now it's not segregated.
Right.
But back then, you had the women's Army,
And
and they were called WACs.
Okay.
And you had the women's Navy, and they were called Waves.
And so are they on ships? Like what are they doing there?
Mostly they were either in the medical field or office.
Okay, office work.
Yeah.
Clerical
They
type
didn't do
stuff.
much.
Yeah.
I mean, like I think Mary Lou was trying to be a air traffic controller.
Okay, yeah.
That's what she was training for,
Right.
to be, when she was that's where she met her husband.
Okay.
He was in the Navy they were stationed in Kingsville, Texas.
Okay.
And so it was really sad for my parents because my oldest brother was gone in the Navy.
Yeah.
And then my brother that was killed, when he was killed and all of that.
Yeah.
Then my brother Joe had already been deployed to the Navy.
Right.
This is all in 1950.
Yeah.
Then my sister had just joined
And she's
the
gone.
Waves,
Yeah,
and she
right.
was gone. And
Were you home?
I was home. Yeah, I was home, and well, actually, I'd just gotten a job
Oh no.
over in Ephrata, Washington. I'd gotten a job working for the government.
Okay.
I had taken my entrance exams to work for the the typing and clerical work. for the shipyard. I'd just taken them, I'd passed, and they ask you, where do you want to work? You know, you fill out a form. And I just said, Washington State, thinking Bangor, Keyport, Bremerton. So they offered me a job in Ephrata, Washington.
Is that central?
East of the mountains,
Oh gosh.
Moses Lake, that area. So I thought I had to take it, so I took it. I didn't know anybody in that area at all.
Oh my gosh.
My mom she was a pretty good manager. She wrote the priest over there.
Oh.
Said my daughter is, what was I, 19 years old, something like that, 18, 19. Never been away from home. It's moving over there. Can you find it? Is there a place, a decent place she could live? Well, they found a school teacher, a woman school teacher who lived with her mother, and they had a room in the basement, so they gave me that room, so that's where I went.
So how long did you live there for?
3 months.
Didn't last too long, huh?
No.
Okay.
But I thought, you know, and then the war was going, so then I thought I could get a job easily in the shipyard.
Yeah.
You know, because the shipyard was booming.
Yeah.
For him, looking for him, so
You
I
came
just,
back
my
home.
mom suggested that I come home.
Yeah.
I mean, she was still pretty controlling,
Yeah.
and I was still pretty submissive.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't that wild or anything so.
Yeah.
But I guess she knew what she was doing. That's why she kind of moved our wedding up for us
Right.
from March to September.
So when you and Grandpa got married, where did you live?
Our first house was on 7th and High.
Okay.
Yeah, it was kind of halfway, because he had to walk to work and I had to walk to work.
Okay.
He went to the naval gate and I went to the main gate.
Right there.
And I worked in the personnel department in the shipyard.
Okay.
Is that house still there?
Pardon?
Is the house still there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little house in the back. It's, well, I think one of the streets, right, like High goes this way, and then I think it's 8th Street kind of dead ends right into that house, the house in front. So, but, you know, we both had to walk to work back then. You just didn't, there was no bus that would get you there any quicker. So and then we stayed there for, I think, a year.
Okay. So you were married in 52.
Yeah.
When did Mike come along?
Mike came in 54.
Okay. So you had a little bit of a honeymoon together, huh?
Well, a little bit, yeah. We got married in 52 in September, and he was born in March 54,
Okay.
so it was a year and a half.
Yeah. And so where did you live? You said you lived after that house on High Street. Where did you move to?
Another, my mom she was in my life a lot, wasn't she?
What are mothers for?
She suggested that we move into an apartment that was rented by my oldest brother and his wife, because he was in California and this apartment was at Naval Gate.
Okay.
And she wanted to go down there and be with him. But she didn't want to have to pay for an apartment for 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
Actually, it was just 3 months. And Mom says, why don't you just move in and you pay for the apartment? And then where were we supposed to go?
After those 3 months?
Yeah, we didn't have that planned out. We just, I don't know what it was, but that's the way we were.
So.
And then actually at that time, when we were living in that apartment by Naval Gate, that's when Lee got out of the service. That was February and Mike was he was born then.
Okay.
And we were living in that little apartment.
Okay.
When my water broke and we went to the hospital. And the thing was that my due date, he was early, and it didn't coincide with his getting out of the service. So I thought, well, I just might as well go to a regular doctor rather than go to the naval. hospital, you know.
Because he'll be out of the service when,
Yeah,
when
that's
Mike
what he
arrives?
figured, but he
Yeah.
came early. He was born March the 3rd, and Lee got out, well, actually, Lee got out, February. He got out in February, the end of February. And that's when he took the test for apprentice school, and he got called up that June for apprentice school. And for those 3 months, he worked at Chevron gas station over in Port Orchard.
Huh. So he worked at the gas station, then he gets the apprenticeship at the shipyard.
Yeah.
And what was the apprenticeship for?
Well, it was, well, he really wanted to get into electronics, I think, but they had a big closure of some facilities over in Idaho,
Uh-huh.
and they had apprentices there that they didn't want to just let them go.
So they moved them all.
So they moved them all. So all the best
Apprenticeships
were taken by these guys that moved over.
Okay.
So he ended up a machinist.
Okay.
So he ended up with a machinist, and it turned out really good for him. Though he was happy, and he met, and he became close friends for life to all the guys that he served his apprenticeship with. They became very good friends all 4 years that they, went through apprentice school together.
So why don't we just list here in Washington who was born? So you had Mike born.
Mike was born in 54.
And then Patty?
Patty was born in 55.
Was it the twins next?
No.
Beth?
Beth was born in 56.
And then?
Twins were born in 58.
And then Teresa?
Teresa was born in 60.
And
I started spacing.
You got smart after the twins, huh?
I was spacing according to the calendar, but it didn't work.
Oh.
Like Cecil used to say, maybe that second hand was off.
The second hand. So when you and Grandpa had my mom, I think what you said is you had 4 kids in diapers, isn't that right?
Well, the twins and Beth, Patty wasn't in diapers.
Right. So, it was the twins with...
And Beth.
Okay. So...
Mike was not 4 years old yet.
Oh my goodness.
Beth was 14 months old. Patty was 2.5. And Mike was 3 and he would have been 4 in March.
Wow.
And they were born in January, and he wasn't 4 till March. So I had 5, and the oldest one was 3.
Oh my goodness. How did you survive?
I don't remember. I really don't.
Wow.
I had a good friend named Joy Milovich that she had 4 or 5 boys herself, but she helped me. She was really helpful.
That's good.
And we lived in Belfair. We had moved to Belfair when Mike was a baby.
Uh-huh.
Well, before Patty was born.
Right.
And we moved into a 1-bedroom house.
Ooh.
That had 2.5 acres.
You could put the kids outside, I guess.
And it had a nice wood shed. And had a nice big garage. Well, it wasn't really a garage. It was made from timbers.
Oh, wow.
It was a very nice place. It really was. I mean, it was, but we stayed there till the twins were in that 1-bedroom. It was a big bedroom.
Yeah. So, were you putting babies in drawers? I mean,
What?
Were you putting babies in the drawers? Where do you...
Well, the twins slept in the same crib till they were, I don't know how old they were. One at one end, one at the other.
Okay.
Because they were premature. They were only 4 pounds something when they were born.
Right.
And so they were tiny. They were tiny for a long time,
Yeah.
And I forget. I think, Teresa was born in Bremerton. I mean, we were living in Bremerton on Montgomery
Okay.
when Teresa was born.
Yeah.
So we didn't stay too long in that 1-bedroom
Yeah.
after the twins were born.
So...
Probably not even a year, I don't think we stayed there. But it was a beautiful little place. I mean, it's a shame we couldn't make it work
Yeah.
better.
Right.
Were you renting or did you buy it?
We bought it. It was a nothing down GI. And we thought nothing down meant nothing down. They said closing costs. We said, what are closing costs? $140 closing costs. I think it was, I can't remember exactly, but it was close. We didn't have $140, so Lee had a shotgun that he had bought, I guess, a year or so. Oh, we bought when he got out of the service. He bought it from one of his, he had mustering out pay, so he bought this shotgun. So he bought it from one of his friends in the Army, or in the Marine Corps. And so he said, I can hawk that. So he did.
And
He
that's
hawked
how
it, and he got enough money for closing costs
Oh my goodness.
on this. But it was a nothing down GI. It was 4% interest, which was a big deal at that time.
Yeah.
That was, and it was, I think it was $35 a month rent, you know, I mean payments.
Mortgage payments.
Yeah, but that included your taxes and everything, you know. So it was a good deal when you only had 2 kids, but then you ended up 5, nothing flat.
Yeah.
So, but it had a little washroom where we had the patio. And we made bunk beds out of, that were just the length of what a crib would be. You know,
Okay.
like
Mini
not
bunk?
very long,
Yeah.
you know, and we just made bunk beds for Patty and Mike out of that. And then poor Beth ended up having to sleep in the bottom bunk with Patty. So it was pretty cozy.
So would you say Grandpa was helpful feeding bottles at night and things like
It
that?
was great.
Oh,
It was
good.
great. With the twins, when they came home, feeding the twins when they came home from the hospital was a 24-hour job, just to feed them, because it took an hour and a half to feed each one.
Really?
For them to get to drink 2 ounces, 2.5 ounces,
Because they were so
took an hour and a
little.
half, because they didn't have the strength
Yeah.
to suck and whatnot.
Yeah.
And so we had a deal where I think he'd stay up till midnight, and then he'd go to bed, and then I would take
The rest of the night.
or it was vice versa, I don't remember which way
Yeah.
it was. But so that each of us could get at least 4 or 5 hours straight sleep.
Wow.
He said one time at work, he's at lunchtime, and he was sitting there and he had lunch, and all of a sudden he went like that. He said he thought he dropped the baby. But it was, and one time we fed the same one twice. We kept our, we had a way, we put them in a certain way at the end of the crib.
So you
And then
know.
they had their name tags on.
Okay.
But somehow one of us made a mistake of putting the wrong one
Swapping
in the wrong end. We weren't very smart either. You know, I mean, there probably was a million better ways to do this than what we did.
So let's talk about Panama. How did that happen? The move.
Lee had just finished his apprenticeship, I think. He just graduated, all of his friends. And one of them they came recruiting from Panama looking for craftsmen. Mostly machinists, because the ships would break down trying to go through the canal, some of them, you know.
And they needed to
and
fix
they
them.
needed to get fixed. And there were no facilities in Panama, you know. No facilities in Panama for that kind of an organization, you know. I mean, a shipyard, you know,
Right.
a private shipyard or anything like that. It all had to be done by the canal
Yeah.
to get those ships out of there.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't have enough, so anyway, that's what they wanted with marine machinists. And so this one friend of ours that graduated, he went down and he came back and he had pictures and said it's wonderful, wonderful. You know, the money's good, the cost of living is cheap, etc. And so we thought we were out of reason because we had 6 kids. They were not going to pay your way down there,
Right.
create all the everything for you, and it was just unreasonable to think they would accept us. So Cecil came home then, he went down and came back and he said, oh, you come on down, there's people here with big families. Come on down, you know. So finally Lee tried it. He got turned down the first time.
Didn't think you're cleaning. We're just going to the park.
Where's he going?
You want to stop it?
Oh, to the park?
How are you?
Well, hi, Anna. How are you? But thank goodness for his good friend Cecil. He talked to the boss down there and said he's a good man, and the doctor thinks the change of climate will do him good.
Oh, okay.
So the guy took a chance on him. Go ahead. So we packed up and drove down to New Orleans, and we put a car on the boat. You have to get there a day early. And on the way down, we stopped in Kansas to visit his folks before we went.
So do you go down on the boat or you fly?
Oh no, we stayed on the boat. We had to stay in New Orleans overnight, which was interesting. But it was interesting. We didn't. New Orleans is a very interesting town.
Yeah.
And of course the kids I don't think were old enough. Mike was just 10. In fact, he had his 10th birthday on the boat going to town.
Oh, okay.
And they weren't old enough to appreciate
The history and all that.
Was the boat, was that the Cristobal?
Cristobal, yeah. And it was a 4-day trip down. And this was in March. And
March of what year?
I've been 62, I think it was 63.
Okay.
63, March of 63. And in March there was a lot of, the boat carried a lot of materials for the canal, you know, produce and food and transportation for like our cars and stuff like that. But they had capacity of 222 passengers on the Cristobal. They had that much room for staterooms and stuff. And it was heaven for me to think I get on that boat, have my meals served.
It's a vacation.
And they come in and make your bed up afterwards.
Wow.
It was just wonderful. And so every day we'd get up and go to breakfast. We had one waiter to our table for all of us, for all 8 of us. You know, 6 kids and
Cruise.
And it was just heaven. Thought I died. I couldn't believe it. But then we get down there, and Cecil, our good friend, again meets us at the boat, and he asked I don't know what you call him, but he asked one of the men in charge, are there any Sniders on the boat? He said, oh yeah, we got a whole boat full of Sniders. There were only 40 passengers on the boat when we went down.
Oh, okay.
And 8 of them were us. So
a quarter of the crew.
Yeah, right. So it was wonderful. And our waiter was a Jamaican, and I couldn't understand him, you know. He just asked me questions, and it was so embarrassing. I couldn't understand him. And 2 years later, we went back and we had that same waiter.
You're kidding.
And I told Lee, I said, my goodness, his English has improved. It was just that my ear could understand a Jamaican accent.
After being in Panama with all the,
So, yeah, it was great.
So, did you learn Spanish when you got to Panama?
No.
Okay.
I tried. I tried, but I was never very good at school. I think it's one of those gifts the Holy Spirit didn't give me, you know.
You have other talents, right?
I'm looking up at some of the other gifts. I'm looking for. Did he find one for me?
You're still waiting.
Patience. No, that wasn't it.
So in Panama, Grandpa starts working on the canal, right?
Yeah.
And you're at home with the kids and you get some help, right?
Oh yes, Catalina was our first maid. Catalina. Yeah, she was one of my friends who'd gotten already. People were so good to us, welcoming as friends. And they had already arranged for a maid for us and everything, so.
Where were you living?
In Cocosolo, and it was a two-bedroom house, two-bedroom apartment. And of course, everything was big, you know, all the rooms are big down there. And
were you feeling spoiled with a maid? Like this is life-changing with all?
not exactly.
No.
Because some of them are, this maid hadn't been really trained like a lot of them. And
some are better than others.
Yeah. But it was good because she did the laundry and it was just.
That makes a difference. Yeah.
That was a big help, not having to do laundry. But what we did is that we made the dining area into another room.
Okay.
And we had bunk beds then for all the kids. We had bunk beds for the boys and bunk beds for the girls. And so they had 3 beds in each of those rooms.
What town were you living in?
Cocosolo.
Cocosolo.
On Severn. Do you remember where? You don't know that? That was where all the 2 bedrooms were, on the Severn. Yeah, and that was a Navy base, and it was where the enlisted lived, in the 2 bedrooms. And the 3 bedrooms were for officers. You know, and then after 2 years, we were able to move into a 3-bedroom, which we turned into a 5-bedroom. They had a porch that was 40 feet long and 10 feet wide.
Okay.
And you just divide it up into
2 rooms. There you go.
Yeah.
That was also in Cocosolo?
Yeah. And we were on close to the water, so we could see the ship. Well, at one end of the building, you could see the ships. And Lee wasn't there. Let me think. Wasn't there 2 years before he became an ad measurer. An ad measurer is measures the ships to determine the tonnage fees.
Oh, the fees. Okay. The toll.
But you start out. Of course, that requires architects, naval architects degree to be an ad measurer, ordinarily. But they didn't have them, so they trained them on the job. And they liked having the machinist because the machinist knew machinery on the boat.
Right.
And they could know which machinery was there to operate the boat and what machinery was there to handle cargo. And you'd be charged for that.
Yeah.
The machinery that handled cargo. So anyway, then, several of his friends took those tests to become.
Hold on, Grandma. So
Okay.
after Grandpa was doing the ad measuring job, how long did that last?
Well, it lasted till he retired.
That was this.
Yeah, and in 1981 we retired from Panama and came up to live in Bremerton.
Okay.
Because Billy was just a freshman in high school.
Okay.
Billy was born in Panama, and all the other kids had moved, and except for Teresa, she stayed in Panama with her husband.
So before retirement, were you staying on base, or did you guys ever move off base?
No.
Out of the zone, I should
We
say.
stayed in the Cocosolo in the 3 bedrooms for most of the time we were there.
Okay.
We did move the last 2 years to Margarita, which was a nicer little community and on the ground floor.
Oh, okay.
So we lived there for the last couple of years that we were there. And
So big events in Panama that you got to be there for.
the riots in 1963, and we had the army come in and protect us. We were afraid that it might be serious, and we had to stay in our homes, and we couldn't even go to the movie theater. So it was kind of scary because we didn't really know what would happen. You know.
Right.
So, but it was real education down there. It was a wonderful place to raise the kids. Your neighbors were from all over the world and all over the states, you know. And it was just a marvelous thing. My husband's job became, from being a machinist where it was hot and sweaty to a nice job in an office, and boarding ships from all over the world. It was just a wonderful experience
Right.
for all of us.
So did you work when you were down there?
Yeah, I did. I worked for the Army, just a secretary,
Mm-hmm.
and then different jobs. I worked at the School of the Americas, which was a big deal down there, the Army. And then I worked for the telephone office for the Army. And then my next job I think was, the alcohol and drug abuse program they had for military service. That was my last job down there. And that was interesting. I was a secretary recording things. I learned a lot there. And then I worked in the school library for a while I was there, Bristol High School Library. And I just jumped from one job to the other. And I worked at Gatun Locks, secretary there.
So what year was Bill born?
Pardon?
Billy was born which year?
He was born in 1967,
Okay, and then Grandpa retired.
in 1981.
Okay, so when you moved to the States, what prompted that move? Why didn't you just retire?
Oh, our
in Panama?
retirement. I mean, they gave us both a good retirement because they wanted the United States citizens to leave.
Oh, they wanted you guys to go.
They offered you a benefit so they could leave.
Okay.
And because they wanted to replace all the Americans with Panamanians wherever possible.
Right.
Because they were going to take over the canal and run it, and they gave you, and it was a good opportunity. We were ready to leave.
Mm-hmm.
We were ready to leave. And then my husband, when we came to Bremerton, we decided this was where we wanted to settle, because and my husband picked up with his old friends. We just picked up from when we left almost.
Wow.
And we lived at Kingston. We bought 7 acres out there, and we built a house, and Lee started working for Panama, for American Bureau of Shipping, measuring boats like he did in Panama. But he traveled everywhere. He traveled to Alaska, up and down the coast, all the way down to Oregon and Northern California. And actually he went to Guam,
Wow.
and we went to Australia once to measure a ship. And
You tagged along
yep.
because you wanted to go to Australia?
Well, yes.
What year was that,
Oh, Tom.
roughly?
I would say 1994 or 5, something like that. Yeah, I would say that.
So when you guys moved up here with Billy, he went to high school where?
At North Creekside High School.
So were you living in Polsbo then?
We moved into Paulsville because we found that we had been living out at Kingston, but we decided until he graduated it was more convenient to live right. We were only a few blocks from the school.
Okay.
And so until he graduated, then that's where we were when he had his accident and had this severe head injury. And,
So let's talk a little bit about the accident that happened what year?
1984.
And Billy was a senior, right?
Yeah, he was a senior in October 1984. And he was in a coma for maybe 2.5 months in Harborview, Seattle. And he has slowly, fortunately for all the support he's gotten from various places over the years, different rehabs, the high school, he went back to the high school, and he had a lot of support there with everybody, and eventually it was at the University of Washington where they decided that his best places for him to get even better would be down in California, where they had a 2-year program where he could gain some independence. So, and that worked out very well over the years.
Was it hard for you to send him to California?
Oh,
Did you
yes,
stay here?
that was the hardest thing. Oh, but I've been told several times it's not about my feelings, it's about what's best for him.
Right.
And that's hard, it's still hard,
Yeah.
still hard. I talked to him today, and he is getting, doesn't have a wide knowledge anymore.
Mhm.
Like sports, he can't remember sports. I mean, there's just not enough left for him to remember.
Right.
And, yeah, I just sent him pictures of Ren,
Yes.
and,
Keep it updated on the family.
yes.
So when Grandpa, after the accident and all that, is he still working then? Because you said he didn't
Yeah,
retire
he was
from the
working,
90s.
actually, he was working for a company, at Bangor. It was a private company that worked for, I forget, something about the missiles
Okay.
that I forget, quality control, something or another. One of his fellow parishioners got him a job there when we first got back. But then, right after that is when the American Bureau of Shipping called him and asked him if they had some jobs, if he wanted to try measuring ships again, and that's when he started. That would have been in, like 85, something like that.
Okay. And then were you working during all this?
Yeah, I was working at the schools. And then I eventually went to the library, middle school library. I always liked working in the libraries.
Oh, okay.
It's the best job in the world.
Because it's
It
quiet.
really is the best job. Well, not with middle school kids, but it was okay. It was great.
Yeah.
So, and then what we would do is that Lee would have to travel, up and down the coast, and I'd go with him on the weekends.
Oh,
He'd
okay.
save the job for the weekend. He didn't have time he had to be anywhere.
Right.
So he could wait for the weekends, and I'd go with him down to Coos Bay and all up and down the coast. But I usually, when he flew, like if he went to Alaska, I wouldn't go with him.
Right.
But if he went far, like
Australia.
Australia, I would go with him. I went with him to England one time, to London,
Mm-hmm.
and that was great. So we had a great retirement. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I was retired. But,
When did you buy the land in Kingston?
pardon?
When did you buy the land in Kingston?
When we were in Panama. We came home every 2 years to buy property, but the price would go up so much, we'd go back and say, no, we'd change our mind. But we intended to retire here, but, yeah, we bought it when we were in Panama, I think in 78 or maybe before that.
What prompted you guys to plant the Christmas trees?
Yeah, that's what we did. Well, you were always looking for some kind of a tax write-off.
Oh.
And the Christmas tree business would be a good tax write-off. And it was a very good tax write-off for us.
Huh.
Because we didn't make any money raising Christmas trees, that's
Yeah.
for sure. We did, we got our trees from McCormick Woods, would you believe that?
Wow.
That was it. That, McCormick Woods is a big,
Golf course, right? Isn't it?
well, a golf course and developer over there. It had lots of properties. That's what they did. Their original thing was Christmas trees.
Oh, okay.
And now they've used the land for other things, development and so on. But that's where we went to learn how to plant Christmas trees and whatever. But it was good exercise for us, being outdoors. Like, you're not outdoors in Panama.
Yeah.
You can't be outdoors working.
Right.
But that's what we did. It was kind of like a fun exercise for both of us.
Right.
Lee loved having a tractor.
He was always a farm boy at heart, right?
Yes, he was. He very much was. Yeah.
So you bought 7.5 acres, is that right?
Yeah.
And then you started building a home on it when?
In 92. 92, I think, is when we built the home.
And was that always the plan, was to?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, one year, when Tom and Evelyn were here, we let them stay in our house while we went to Panama for a month. And then when we came back, we had a travel trailer, so we just put the travel trailer out there, stayed out at the farm for, a month or two, and I says, you know, I like living out here. It's good, it feels good. Be out there in all those trees, so that's what convinced me I'd be happy. And I thought, well, if we can stay here 10 years, I'll be happy. So that's just about what we'd stayed, was 10 years.
Right.
And then we got so we couldn't take care of all that property. And we decided that we were getting to the age where we needed to get something smaller.
So Grandpa had a stroke, right?
Grandpa had, the health was really getting bad too. And he really couldn't work anymore. You know, he did, but it was getting too much for him. He had a partner that came up, a fellow ad measure from Panama, Bob Bess, came up and worked with him. And for a while he got my brother Jim, when he retired, to do the driving for him. And yeah, it just got too much for him. I think it was, but he loved doing it. He never did really want to quit, but he had to, you know.
So when did he finally quit?
It was before we moved here, so it was probably in 98, 96 or 98, something like that. Yeah. He was a very amazing man. He managed to do a lot in his life.
So if he retired in 96, 98, how old would he have been then?
What's that again?
How old was he when he retired?
He had been 70. See, that's almost 70. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, almost 70. Yeah, probably 68.
Yeah.
I'm counting 31 from.
Right. That's a long time.
Well, how old was he when he passed away?
He was 70, 78, 79.
And that
He
was
passed away in 2008, and so I think that would.
Yeah, so he would be about
that.
68 or
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. But he was so sick the last few years, though. I mean, he just. I heard somebody say that when they saw his picture in the paper, they said, "Oh, I had never seen him smile before."
Oh.
It was a nurse that had worked with him. And that was because he was so sick, but he was so tough.
Yeah.
He never complained, he didn't. He was an amazing, amazing man. Even when he had asthma so bad here, he'd just sit there in his chair like this, stiff, and just all he could do is breathe. You know, this was way back. They do more for it now, but, you know, but when he was younger and probably in his early 30s, it was that asthma. I don't know if it had anything to do with the shipyard or his, every time he had an x-ray, they'd show up some metal still from his
The shrapnel.
shrapnel, but they said it wasn't in his lung. But you just don't know where, who
Yeah.
knows, who knows.
Right.
But he was very tough about being sick. He just could really
Yeah.
tough it out.
Right. So now it's 2019, and you're still in Bremerton here in this house that you guys bought when?
Around 2000, 2002, something like that.
Okay. Because Grandpa stayed here the last few years with you, right?
Oh yeah, he was here. He enjoyed this place very much.
Yeah,
Watched some ball games down there.
that's right. Yeah. Is it kind of funny to think that it circled back all the way to Bremerton, your life?
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it that way.
Right.
But he's the one who wanted to come to Bremerton. I wanted to go where his asthma would be better.
Right.
Because all the time we were in Panama, he had not a touch of asthma.
Right.
It would turn out to be the best thing for him,
Yeah.
you know.
Change of climate. Yeah.
You got some questions?
Yes. So your grandkids came up with these for you. Dominic says, what fun things did you like to do when you were a kid? Like, did you play any games?
We played hide and go seek, and we played, I don't know if you ever heard of this, rooster fights.
No, what's rooster fights?
You get on the shoulders of your older brother, and your sister gets on the shoulders of the other brother, and you have fights, try to pull the one off. You ever hear of that?
Yeah. Did you do it in the pool or on land?
Oh no, on land.
Okay.
This is when we were little. Like,
Right.
I was 10 years old. And
Yeah.
We were just little. 'Cause it was,
Okay, so Gabriel says, do you remember, or do your parents remember when the Titanic sunk?
I'm sure my parents might have, but news didn't travel so fast.
Right.
That would have been when the Titanic was what, 1917? No, it was 1910. And I don't,
I think, I want to say 1914, somewhere in
but
there.
I'm thinking, you know, Kansas and living in the country.
They don't hear about that.
I don't know, because I don't remember ever talking about that.
Right.
I don't remember them, the things that I remember them talking about that was newsworthy was like the KKK was
Oh.
very predominant and in that era,
In the country.
and in that part of the country, in
Right.
Kansas and things like that.
Huh.
And they were very anti-black, anti-Catholic, very anti-Catholic.
Yeah.
In fact, the church burned down in Valley Falls, Kansas, and they never thought, you know, they've always been suspicious that it was.
KKK.
But that kind of news is what they heard about. It was
Yeah.
more local,
Yeah. Right.
but yet it was more nationwide too.
Yeah, it's big stuff.
But I mean, and the war, the Second World War, or the First World War, they talked about that, because local kids served in that
Right.
war. And they would pay attention to that. But
Yeah.
I don't know if the Titanic was a big thing. I don't
Right.
remember.
Gabriel asked, did you have any family members that went to war, and if so, what wars did they fight?
Yeah.
We covered that, the Korean
Yeah,
War.
right, yeah, my brother Pat, they're my 3 older brothers. And of course, when my sister was in the waves.
And your husband too? Was
Yes.
Marine. And Gabe asked, have you ever been to a different country other than Panama? So we said Australia, you went to the UK, so London,
And Germany,
Germany.
and.
I think I've seen a picture of you in Italy, right?
Right, and France,
France.
and, yeah, I went to Lourdes,
Oh, that's right, okay.
and, where else did I go? We didn't do, it's a shame that we didn't do more when we were in Panama to go to the other
South American
countries,
yeah.
or Central American countries. We never even went to anywhere in Central America.
Right. You guys would go to the islands, right, around Panama, Las Perlas and stuff?
Oh, Lee would go fishing. That was the big
Okay.
thing. Oh, that was the big thing about Lee. He loved fishing. He loved fishing. That's why he thought he died and gone to heaven down there to all the fishing that he did. He fished in the river for tarpon. He fished in the lake for bass and what else in the lake. And
Crocodiles.
yeah, and then yeah, that was the big thing that he liked doing. And then he would go fishing in the Pacific for
Salmon.
marlin and yeah, big fish.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Grandma. We're so glad we got to do
Well, I hope I didn't rattle on and bore you too much.
this. Not at all. We love hearing about it.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Love you, Grandma.